don't want to dive so deep into business that I neglect my family. So I have overcompensated by spending too much time with my family and not enough time on my business, and then the business part is now suffering. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I switch back over? The guy who answered my question in the conference, he says, when it comes to family time, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And understanding that even if it's 15 minutes that you spend with your, or half an hour that you spend with your son or daughter or wife, that 15 minutes must be so valuable that it replaces the equivalent of 5 hours together.
So Denlis, have you ever heard of, or have you ever watched the movie Coming to America?
Yes.
You have?
The first one.
The first one, the only one that matters.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So every time I think of you or talk to you, that's what I imagine. At least
you imagine me with a lion skin or something?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm waiting for you to come out as this big prince from Africa, that's what that's why you came to America.
Yeah. Except I'm not from Africa.
But you're not from Africa, but you play the African drums.
I
so
do.
that's
I do.
kind of
okay, all right. Yeah, there we go.
So anyhow.
Coming to America.
Yeah, so obviously with that joke and that comment, you're not from America. So we'll kind of start off a little bit of background, and more importantly, it's like negative 10 degrees outside. You definitely came from somewhere warmer than this. Why Nebraska? So those are my two questions. How'd you get to America, and why Nebraska?
So negative 10 degrees, let me just talk to that. You all use Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
The rest of the world uses Celsius.
But it's tied.
Trinidad and Tobago uses Celsius.
Mm-hmm.
So minus 7 degrees is actually minus 20 something Celsius. So when I tell my friends back home, I'm minus 23 degrees Celsius, they're like, you just say minus, because the low in Trinidad is 23 degrees Celsius, which is like 74 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the low. Like the lowest it would ever get. It doesn't get below that. So let me just throw that to you.
Yeah.
I am from the island of Trinidad and Tobago.
Off the coast of...
For those that don't know where that is off the coast of Venezuela. For those that don't know where that is, you need to get a map or a globe and look for South America. But most people know it's a Caribbean island. It's a twin island country. It's Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of people leave out the Tobago part, and Tobago is a very important part of our culture. Right? I won't get too much into why, but a lot of us shorten it. Real people from Trinidad and Tobago who acknowledge Tobago as part of our country, we shorten it and we call ourselves Trinbagonians. Trinidad, Tobago, Trinbagonians. Right? Because we don't like to leave out Tobago. It's very important. So how did I get here? Why Nebraska? I wouldn't give you my pre-story before 2019. I would start from 2019. In 2019, wait, how much of a deep story do you want me to get? Because I could get really deep, or I could just skim the surface and just tell you how I got to America. Which one do you want?
I want to hear about kindergarten when you were dreaming of cornfields.
From the Caribbean islands to the cornfields. Here's the title.
All right. So you want my story, and when I tell my story, it's very much a redemption story, because growing up, I wasn't very, how to say it. I mean, my mother and my father right now is like 78. My mother is 60, 63 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there was a 15-year gap between my mother and my father. Sometimes that brings problems in communication because it's almost an entire generation of difference between them. So with that being said, I am their first child, but I'm not the first child. So I am my mother's and father's first child, but I have an older brother. I have 3 older sisters, and I have 1 younger brother. So I'm the second to last of 6. 3 boys, 3 girls. Growing up, I was 100% into sports. I love football, which is
The ball that you kick with your feet.
that one,
Yeah,
the
that
round one, not the egg-shaped one, right?
The one that the rest of the world calls football.
Yeah, that one, and America calls soccer. So I love football growing up, and used to play it all the time. We always used to play a sport called cricket. I don't know if you guys know about cricket.
I'm familiar that it's a thing. I've tried to learn the rules several
The
times.
US actually has a cricket team,
Mhm.
and it was surprising to hear that the US had a cricket team. So,
Doesn't a full cricket match last 3 days or something like that?
well, it depends on the type of match. So there's test match. Test match could last up to 5 days.
5 days.
Yeah,
one match.
Straight?
No, not straight.
Okay.
No.
They take breaks. They take tea breaks, like even the
Oh,
regular one.
Okay.
And it's literally called a tea break.
Yeah.
That's the name of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm uncultured swine.
But in Test cricket, it's like baseball with innings.
Mm.
So you have coin toss. Whoever wins goes in, bats first, and then it's very strategic because you have to. If it is you don't finish the entire game, it ends in a draw. So you have to be able to try to finish. You have one innings, the other team has one innings.
Mm.
Then you come back for your second innings, and the other team has to finish their second innings in that 5-day period. If it doesn't finish, then it ends in a draw. So you have to be strategic with how long you stay in for your first innings to try to make as many runs as possible. But it's also methodical because you have to pace yourself. Because if you're playing for the entire day and you get tired halfway, then you're out.
Right.
Then your team is in trouble because you and your other batsman, the partnership that you have, you would build a chemistry. And when someone outs, that chemistry is broken. So now you have to try to rebuild that chemistry with someone else. So it's real strategic, and I would say you should probably look into it, but I know you won't because it's very cruel to sit down and try to look at a test match. Each over is 6 balls. So the bowler bowls over arm, and it's six legal deliveries is 1 over, right? And then the the bowler would come bowl 6, and then the umpire would say, okay, next one as that we finish, and then they switch. So the other batsman on the other side is the lead batsman at that point in time, and then you become the partner. And when to score a run, you have to cross each other and go into each other's. They call it there's like a line where the wicket is, and you have to go into that safe zone. Once you get into that safe zone, that's 1 run. You literally run between the wickets. So they bat, the bowler bowls, you place the ball, and then you run. And you run in between, and you can either touch and come back, but you can run as many as 4 times, 5 times, is up to you. But by the time you hit that, someone is looking to field that ball. So if it is you don't make it in the safe zone in time, and the person who's fielding throws it to someone who is by the wicket, and they knock the bails off of the stumps, if they knock it off before you reach in the zone, you're out.
There's a quiz.
That's a better explanation than any of the YouTube videos I've watched before, but still.
There's a quiz on this at the end.
Yeah.
So that's one way to out someone. You could get caught out. So you hit it up in the air and someone catches it. That's caught out. And you could get bowled out. So if someone is bowling and you miss and it hits the stumps, you could get bowled out as well. You could get stumped out. So behind the stump, just like how there's a catcher in baseball, there's a wicket keeper that's behind with gloves, with helmet, everything. And he is usually very flexible, very acrobatic, because he has to be able to jump and that kind of stuff and catch. But he's also fast. So what happens is, if he is right behind the stumps, and a spin bowler is bowling, and he bowls and he catches it, and you are out. Because one of the techniques batsmen use is they stand in front of the safe zone. So when they hit the ball, it shortens the distance between the bowler and the batsman, and it gives them an advantage because if the bowler bowls bad, they could hit for 6 or 4 runs or however they want to do it. But it gives some of them a competitive advantage to shorten the distance between where the ball bounces on the pitch before hitting before reaching the batsman. So they can either jump and go down the pitch and hit the ball before it bounces, or however they want to do it. So when they are in front of the safe zone, the wicketkeeper could catch the ball and catch them out of the safe zone and break the stumps, break the bails off the stump and out them. So that's another way to get out. I know that was a very long explanation, and I'm going to continue past cricket now. So I used to play both of those. I was also in the equivalent of high school. I was a track and field athlete, so I used to run the 4x100, 4x400, and the 110-meter hurdles. So I used to run hurdles. I did that for like a year and a half. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. So went through high school, finished high school, and naturally you go from high school in the educational path.
Is it called secondary school there?
It is called secondary school. Primary school, secondary school. Thank you. So at the end of secondary school, naturally the path is to go into either university directly, or you could go into something called A-levels. All of this is, by the way, the British education system. So that's why it's different from America.
I lived in England, so that's how I knew the way you're describing it.
Primary school, secondary school. Yeah. So I went to A-levels directly out of secondary school. And my focus was mathematics, physics, and that was my majors, mathematics and physics. So when I was in Form 3, which would be exiting middle school to go into high school, we had to choose specials to be able to focus our studies on. And I chose chemistry, physics, biology, Spanish. Those are my specials. And then advanced subsidiary mathematics. So I was very much on the mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Well, more mathematics and physics than chemistry and biology. When I finished Form 5, which would be the equivalent of at 16 years, wherever you are at 16 years in school, maybe sophomore, right?
Ish.
So at 16 years, I would have finished my secondary school education, going into A-levels, and then I got accepted to do mathematics and physics as a special. And A-levels is 2 years, so it's the equivalent of associate's degree. And so but when you go into college, you still have to do your 4 years, which is weird. I never understood that. But some degrees accept the A-levels as credits, some, but not all.
So you do A-levels for 2, and then you have to do another 4 in university? Wow.
But the first year in university is the equivalent of the A-levels. So it's like a transitional...
okay. So sort of like how we use community college to kind of prepare you for university.
Yeah, something along those lines. It could be equated to the community college. So went into university after A-levels. Went into university and got accepted to do a double major in mathematics and physics. When I went to my first physics class, I was like, I cannot do this. I dropped that and I changed my major to a double major in mathematics. I didn't understand it either. So one major is, let's say it's 64 credits to graduate. A double major would be 128 credits. That's it. So you take more mathematics classes. That's all. So by the way, I was like 19-ish at this point in time, 19, 20, somewhere around there. So I didn't have any idea as to what I was doing with my life, because when you live on an island, it's very saturated with opportunities. So there might be an opportunity to be let's say a bank teller, but there are like 60 something people that are applying for that bank teller position.
Do you know what the population is
in Trinidad? Yeah, it probably is right now about 1.7 or 1.8 million people. But with the influx of Venezuelans, it probably has reached about 2 million,
Wow.
because a lot of Venezuelans came over.
How far is it
Fleeing.
by boat? 50 miles, or is it not that far?
This Trinidad, on one point of Trinidad in the western coast, you could stand
Can't see.
and see on a clear day, you could see the coast of
So
Venezuela.
5 miles
About
or so.
5 miles, yeah.
Mm.
Just around 5 miles. Between between the two closest points, Venezuela and America and Trinidad. So so I did that double major, and while doing the double major, I realized that this is not for me, because the other side of my life at that point in time, I was very much in the party scene. So I was part of a party committee. The name of it was 868 Family. Big up to the 868 family. No one is going to see this. But anyway.
Oh, they're all big followers. So.
But I definitely will post it. And so I was a part of that group, and that got me into the entertainment space, knowing people in the entertainment space, soca artists and other performing artists. And by networking in that space, I was able to meet certain people to be able to be a part of projects. So I was integrated into that space. You mentioned African drumming. That didn't come until like 2012 or 13.
Okay.
So I graduated from A levels in 2010, and then 2012 was when I started drumming. And I didn't start playing djembe. I started on what they call samba and kinkini, which is a 2-piece set. I'm not going to go. I try not to go too much into details. But it was drums that I play with sticks, and then I moved to the djembe drum, which is the lead drum that I play now. And let me know whenever you guys want me to stop. So
I'm learning a lot. Yeah, this is great.
So into 2 years into university, I realized that I was wasting the government's money, because in Trinidad and Tobago, at one point in time, it was free tertiary education. So you get free primary, secondary, and then free tertiary education. So you could go and get your degree for free.
Mm-hmm.
You'd pay $0 out of pocket to get your degree. So a lot of people took advantage of that and actually got degrees. And then I took advantage of it by going and partying and doing drugs and all kind of, because I used to smoke marijuana heavily, and I started smoking marijuana in university when I met, at that point in time, those bad influences. So and at that stage in my life, I have no direction, no idea of where I'm going. I just know that I'm involved in the party scene and I'm loving it. I'm wasting the government's money, realizing that I'm here going to classes that I only want to go to, and then everything else is failing. So I think I had like a 1 point. Actually, no. I had like a 0.75 GPA. They gave me something called an RTW, which stands for required to withdraw. So you have to stay out a year, and then after that you could reapply to come back in. And I lied to everybody, and I was like, I'm just gonna take a year off from school because I don't know what I'm doing. But I was forced to leave. I had to.
You're still taking a year off.
Yeah, I just pitched it to everybody else. I'm not a delinquent, which I am a delinquent. But I was telling everybody, I just need a year off to figure out what I want to do in life and that kind of stuff. And I was assuring people, I was like, don't worry, I'm going to go back because I have to finish that, because I want to be a professor, because I want to teach. And everybody believed me. Everyone, if it's one thing for sure, at that point in time in my life, I knew exactly how to manipulate people for them to be able to understand, to give me what I want. And it's not something I'm proud of, especially going back in hindsight, because I used to also do that with women. So I was very much a womanizer when I was younger, because I was never taught how to respect women. I had to learn that on my own. Mm-hmm. So in me not having a stable job, not having a stable income, I needed to figure out a way to be able to, survive. And that turned into me manipulating situations with women to be able to get what I want, from transportation to food to money. It's not something I'm proud of at all, but it's a part of my history. So in doing that, I would have cycled through different relationships, temporary relationships or transactional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only until, and that lasted for a while, from maybe 2013, 2014, all the way up until like 2019. So for most of my 20s, that was me, just cycling through, not having any kind of direction. Music was the only stable thing in my life at that point. So I used to, my family, we have a musical band. There's a genre of music in Trinidad called parang. It's derived from Venezuela, and it's derived from a style of music in Venezuela called aguinaldo. But the parang word came from the word parranda, which in Spanish, in Venezuelan Spanish at least, means party, celebration. So the parang music is centered around the birth of Christ. It's so there's the aguinaldo is the style of rhyme in the music and the way the chordal progression is played. But the nacimiento literally means birth of Christ, the birth. So el nacimiento is the birth. So there are songs that are centered traditionally around the birth of Christ and the annunciation of the angel Gabriel to Mary about the fact that she's going to have Jesus and all these different things, right? So Annunciación is the annunciation and El Nacimiento is the birth. And we would have sung music that is equivalent to, so the parang music, think about it, traditionally is like house to house caroling up in America, where people walk with candles and they're like, right? So we just don't do it that boring. We don't have candles walking, and it's that dead.
You bring the drums, and you bring the party.
It's exactly. Yeah. Remember, it's parang it's more energy, it's more energetic. So what we do is traditional parang, house to house parang, like house to house caroling. Traditional parang is we wait until everyone is asleep, and then we go into your house. So we would let's say you go to bed.
That's a great way to kind of start the.
And this is Christmas time, so a lot of people have food and alcohol and that kind of stuff, and they're in the Christmas spirit. And part of Trinidadian Christmas is parang. So people know, people who know Trinidadian Christmas accept that there is parang music and there are paranderos. And if you know a parandero, like if you know me, you know I'm going to come to your house at some point in time. I'm not going to tell you when, because that's part
it's just going to happen.
It's just going to happen. Just know that it's going to happen. And it's not going to happen on Christmas Day, or it may not happen weeks before Christmas. It could happen the day after Christmas. It could happen 2 days after Christmas. It could happen a month before Christmas. The Christmas season starts from, I would say, like October-ish. So anywhere between October, November, and December, because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And we don't celebrate Halloween. So those things are not part of our culture. So the Christmas season, let's say, even if it is, we say, beginning of November, from November all the way to the end of December, that's the Christmas season, right? And anywhere between the end of November to the end of December, I have permission to come to any one of your houses at 2 a.m. in the morning while you are sleeping and wake you up with music. And if you understand culture, you will be very accepting to that. You would wipe the yampy out of your eye, the coal out of your eye. You would come, you would put on some clothes, whatever the case is, shake some mouthwash in your, and come and open the door and be happy and dance and bring everybody in, and then go and get your alcohol and your ginger beer and all your sorrel or whatever other drinks and bring it out, and feed everybody with snacks or whatever, and just a little mini party right in your house at 2:00 in the morning. After you're sleeping. So, and we do that in multiple houses in one night. So we would start like 9. Our longest run is Christmas Eve. So 24th of December, we would start 9 p.m. and we would finish 9 a.m.
So you're just falling over by 9 a.m.
Well,
If you're having a drink with every house, I mean.
But you're drinking water in between because you also have to drive.
Okay.
So you are drinking alcohol, but you're pacing yourself.
See, in my head, you were going door to door, just playing music for every house in the neighborhood.
Nah, it's only people that we know and people that we know who curious to people that they know who would accept that, because not.
That's what I was going to ask. So you go to the first one at 9 o'clock. At, say 10 o'clock, you're going to the next house. So the person at 9 o'clock going with you at 10 o'clock?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. So we would start with 15 people, but by the time we reach the last house, it could be 30, 40 people, which is scary for people.
That's awesome.
It's scary. But some people, they join and then they leave, they go back home. But it's like, we are going, you're welcome to join us if it is you want to. That it really was like the highlight of my life. I used to look forward to Christmas every year because that is something that I share with my family that is unique. Like, yes, there are other people in Trinidad that do that, and they have family that they do that as well. But I could be proud of the fact that that's part of my family culture and my family heritage. And I didn't understand, while I was doing it, I didn't understand how important it was until I came up here. They always say, you never miss the water until the well runs dry. So when I came up here, that's when I realized, hey, this is a part of me and my identity, and it's very important. So much so that I want to start teaching people about it here. That's something for maybe another podcast. So where am I? I am in 2019. So this is where the story really gets from me being that guy to more of closer to how I am now. So including my hairstyle, because I think in 2018 is when I cut my dreadlocks. I had long dreadlocks all the way down to my waist.
Oh wow! I want to see a picture of that.
Yeah, I'll show you. So I had already cut my hair because and I need to go back a couple of years. In 2017, I was living it was me and my younger brother alone living in the household, in my father's house. He had left probably about 2 years at that point. And he didn't leave and like just leave us, to fend for ourselves. He was like in another place, but he was still providing for us. But he just wasn't present. And I had a strained relationship with my father growing up. But again, that's another story. So in 2017, my younger brother and I, long story short, we had a falling out. And it was very bad because we weren't able to, like, we literally lived in the same household, and there's a hallway that is, let's just say, is this wide. And we would walk in the hallway, and we can't walk like this in the hallway because of how narrow it is. Otherwise, we'd bounce into each other. So we used to turn just to be able to fit. And we used to turn, he's coming this way, I'm going that way. We would turn this way, so our backs are to each other. We're not seeing each other, we're not talking. So we live in the same house, and that went on for, I think, at least a month. We living in the same house. And that's when we fell out, I went across to my mom's place, and I told her, I'm like, I need to be here for a while. And then I called my then best friend, and she was like, I would buy a ticket for you to come up to America and figure it out. That's the kind of person that she is, and that's the kind of person that she was to me at that point in time. And I was like, yeah, no problem, I come in. So she bought my ticket, I went up, and then I went to Buffalo, New York. And that was in July. And I stayed there for 4 months, trying to figure out, at this point, I have no job, I have nothing. So I'm trying to figure out what in heaven's name am I supposed to do with my life? Because I don't know. So while in Buffalo, that's when I was like, I always wanted to do piloting. Always wanted to be a pilot. Always was fascinated with planes. It's like, okay, you know what? That's what I'm going to put all my energy into. So much so, in 2017, we saved enough money. I don't even know how I got money to be able to do this, but we went down to Miami and we visited a couple of schools. pilot schools, got information, went back home. I said, yeah, I know exactly what I need to do to be able to get to America. Let me start working on it. So I started doing fundraisers, that kind of stuff. None of the fundraisers ended up raising enough funds for me to be able to come up as one. There was a loophole that I couldn't get out of, where the school needed me to have proof of funds for me to be able to get an acceptance letter. And anybody who wanted to give me any kind of sponsorship needed me to have an acceptance letter.
Oh.
So I needed an acceptance letter to get money, and I needed money to get an acceptance letter, and I had none.
Welcome to America.
But I was in Trinidad, So it was. So I was just stuck in that loophole, and I was like, okay, I need to raise funds to be able, and it just didn't happen. So I gave up on that dream of becoming a pilot, and that sent me into a state of depression, almost like really, really bad. So fast forward into 2019. 2018 was when I met my wife again. I knew Tamara in A levels. That's when I met her, which is 2008-ish, 2009, somewhere around there. That's when I would have met her. But we went our separate ways, lived our separate lives, and then we reconnected in 2017 when I was coming up to Buffalo. And then when I went back, we kind of reconnected again in 2018. And then I found out that she was pregnant with our son, Dejani. We had Dejani in 2019 of March. And in 2019, that was when Tamara, while she was pregnant with Dejani, we were having a conversation of where do we want based on our experience of living here, do we want to raise our children in this environment? Or, well, in this case, child. We want to raise our child in this environment. And I told her, I believe, based on my experience of coming up to America, and that 4 months, and that's what I based my experience on. And my experience was 4 months in Buffalo, right? But I saw how much opportunity it was in Buffalo. So if I could see that, and Buffalo is one small city in the entire United States, then I could use that to be able to sell the idea to her that we don't have to go to Buffalo, but we could go to somewhere that we could create opportunity for our child to be able to be whatever he or she wants to be.
So you went to Google, you said, what's the best opportunity? And
I didn't go to Google. Because then I would now find Omaha.
You can only find Omaha by throwing a dart with your eyes closed.
Or if they call you. So don't call us, we'll call you. So I was able to sell her the idea. Now it was, how do we come up? How do we get up here? Tamara, thank God, is a nurse. She has been a nurse, but she was a nurse in Trinidad when we had the journey for 5 years. So she has ICU experience in nursing in Trinidad.
Is all that stuff transferable? Or did she have to come back to school up here too?
No, she has a bachelor's in nursing.
Oh, okay.
So that was transferable to come up here. So she already had, so that was, and that's how we got up here. Is on Tamara's merit is how we got up here. But I need to give you the backstory on how I actually was able to come with her. So she, after convincing, by the way, we're not married or anything like that. We're not even boyfriend and girlfriend. We just baby mama and baby daddy, if you want to call it. I actually do not like those terms, but that's the best way to describe it.
Simplistic.
Yeah. So that was our situation. We agreed. Now it was figuring out how to get up. She did a little bit of research and she came across a recruiting agency. The recruiting agency, now obviously 2019 is the start of COVID now starting to come into play, and things, you're not getting wind of it, but nobody taking it seriously, which is why it got so bad. And while doing that, she was like, okay, we need to come up. Well, I want to do this because I think this is the best way to. I was like, 100% do it. 2019, after we had the journey, 6 months, July 2019, she got to fly up. She had to fly up to do the NCLEX, which is the nursing exam, to become a nurse in America, to get a license in America. Came up, did the NCLEX, came back down in August, realized that, well, she got the results that she passed. So it was full steam ahead to be able to get the immigration papers ready, immigration documents ready, to be able to get our immigration visa to be able to come up here. Now, at this point in time, I am not married to her. I am still very much my slack way that I was, womanizer, still same way, even while I had a child with Tamara. Again, nothing that I'm proud of, but that is my history. And it didn't happen until 2019. So when I flew up in 2017, remember I told you guys I'm a musician, right? So, and para music, very important. When I came up to Buffalo in 2017, I met Trinidadians who have not been back home for like 30 something years.
Oh, wow.
Which means they haven't heard traditional para music in that long, live para music. So I came and just went to someone's basement party and just started playing and singing. And they were like, we need you to come back up next year. We're going to try an entire event for you. So from 2018 and 2019, those 2 years, I flew back to Buffalo and did shows as a solo artist, performing with my quattro, playing and singing and that kind of stuff. And then I ended up meeting, and it was growing because I was carded to come back in 2020. So in 2018, I had 2 shows. In 2019, I got 4 shows. And then in 2020, I was carded to go to Canada, as well as Brooklyn and New York and Queens and other places in addition to Buffalo. And I was going to go up to like 6 or 7 shows that I'd have been on tour.
And you're getting paid this whole time. Yeah, that's awesome.
And they're paying for my ticket, they're paying for my accommodation, and they're giving me a stipend.
Wow.
So, I was like, yeah, making it, solo artist. And then in 2019, that was when my life literally just went from me not knowing where to go, not doing anything, to all the way down to the bottom. So again, remember I was telling you that I was into like smoking marijuana and that kind of stuff, real heavy. And I met this guy in 2017. And when I went up in 2019, I stayed by my best friend in Queens because I was going to Buffalo. So I went Queens first, then I went to an area just north of New York City called Catskills. You know Catskills?
Well, Mike Tyson's from there.
So in Catskills, New York, I went up there, and he lives in Catskills, New York. And very just close to like wherever Catskills is. I don't know the actual name of the town, but so I went and stayed by him for like 4 days, and then I took a train from there to Buffalo. And in that 4 days, I lost my phone the day before I had to leave, and on the day I was leaving, I took a bong hit. So smoked the marijuana through the bong, and I overdid it. And I started hallucinating on the way to the train station. And the hallucination was really bad because I was forgetting who I was, where I was going. And and just imagine if it is you, something bad happens to either one of you, and you actually are forgetting, or you have actually forgotten who you are. The level of panic that is going to set in, that's the level of panic that was setting in with me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know the people that were driving me. So I was like in a state of panic. And I pulled out my wallet, and I don't know what told me to put. I believe it's God that told me to pull out I pulled out my wallet, opened my wallet, and the first thing I saw was the Johnny, a baby picture of the Johnny in my wallet on top of my driver's license. So I pulled out the picture and I was like, oh yeah, I have a son. Put that down. Pull out my driver's license, saw a picture of my mother. Okay, I was like, that's my mom. And I started reading my driver's license to remember who I was. that's how I kind of caught myself from going down a spiral that I probably would not have recovered from. So kind of got back some semblance of who I was, where I was, but then I started feeling sick because I didn't eat any breakfast. I just smoked and was high out of my mind and hallucinating, and I started feeling upset. So much so that I sat in the back seat and looked at the rearview mirror and I split myself in two. So the person who's sitting here is the bad version of myself, and the person who's in the rearview mirror is the good version of myself. And I started having a conversation with myself in the rearview mirror. And I'm like, please, please. No, it was the bad person in the rearview mirror and the good person sitting. So I am having a conversation with myself saying, you are doing bad things. Why are you doing bad things? Like, please don't puke in these people's car. Like, stop, get yourself together, that kind of stuff. Come on, and was fighting that urge. And I did not puke in their car. But when I got to the train station, that's when I puked. I've never been to a train station at this point. So I am learning how to navigate their train station and a train station. So come in there and at the train station is here. The train has arrived, going into the cab. By the way, this is winter in Buffalo, well, in Catskills. So, and I'm from a tropical island. So I am cussing left, right, and center myself and saying, look at you, Denlis. You're effing, this and that. You're by yourself. Nobody here for you. Look, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you in this state right now? What is the benefit? I was asking myself a lot of questions at that point in time. And when I saw my picture of my son, I was like, I need to talk to him. Right? I need to talk to him. I need to apologize to him. By the way, my son is 6 months at this point, and 9 months or something. He can't understand anything I'm saying. But I was like, I need to talk to him because I need to make a promise to him and to myself that I need to change my life. And I'm going to start dedicating my life to him at that point in time. So went into the train. No, I don't have any phone because I lost my phone the day before. So I pulled out my very first MacBook Pro 2012. And thank God that the train had Wi-Fi. So I logged into the Wi-Fi and I video called Tamara on Facebook Messenger. Thank God it had Facebook video call. Because I would not have been able to do any of these things if the technology wasn't available. Could you imagine if it was 1986 and I go into this? Like, how I get in contact with Tamara? Telegram or some kind of thing. Anyway, so pulled up the laptop, called her, she didn't answer. Called her mother, and I remember because it was December 13th, because her mother's birthday is December 12th, and they went to dinner or lunch on the 13th. So call her mother, and I'm like, can I talk to your daughter, please? Or is the Johnny around? I want to talk to him. So the phone is passed to my son, and I'm telling him, by this time, tears are running down my eyes, snot is out of my, like, I'm a mess. Crying my eyes out and apologizing profusely to him and just saying, I'm done with all of the nonsense that I'm doing, the smoking, the drinking, the partying, I finished. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to live my life for you. And I just dedicated everything there to him. And obviously, his mother is right there. She's hearing everything. And everybody else who's there is also hearing everything. But I didn't care because I was talking to my son. And that was the most important thing. And I was making a promise to myself. And I did not know then, but I found out later that day, Tamara had decided that she didn't want to do anything with me anymore. She was done giving me chances. She was going to start moving on with her life and figuring out how to come up to America by herself and work on being a single parent and figure it out. She didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. She was done with me because I put her through a lot, rightfully so. So I found out later that happened. And when I came back to Trinidad, when I went back to Trinidad, I actually puked in the train because I didn't know where the bathroom was. So I just ended up puking where the shovels and brooms, where they hang that, in that little space there. Just
That
stood
was
there,
nice of you.
just puked right there, and just stood there embarrassed. And it really was a rock bottom moment. But yes, I didn't puke in the hallway. I puked at the side. Thank God that there was 5 minutes after there was a stop. So the ticket puncher guy came and he was like, "Do you need to go to the hospital?" I was like, "No, I just need to go close to where the bathroom is, so that if it happens again, I could go." Thankfully, when I got relocated, I just fell asleep for the entire trip. So back to Trinidad, told Tamara I'm going to dedicate my life to her if she gives me one more chance. And that was the start of my transformation. So that would have been December of 2019. And I was able to convince her. And we got married in March of 2020. So March 29th was when we got married.
It's pretty quick convincing to marriage.
Because I went from party to no party at all. Like I left the party group. I deleted all of the contacts of all of my women who I was involved with. Just stopped talking to them, stopped partying. I just stayed home, went to work. I worked for my brother's transporting company at that point in time. So I just went to work and I went home. It was literally me dedicating my life to them, and I was showing her that. I didn't go to any parties. I stopped smoking marijuana, stopped drinking alcohol. Like it was a hard stop on everything. Now, when you do something like that, it's very difficult to be able to maintain it. So as much as I was for those 3-4 months was in it 100% proving it, and then got married to her, that's when after that I kind of relapsed. I went back and smoked a little bit and drink because I already married. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, I already married, accomplished it. So now it's just because, again, that is my old transactional way of thinking. That was me in survival mode, doing what I know what to do, which is manipulate a situation and then, be able to benefit from it. So I saw a way out of Trinidad, and it was through Tamara, and I needed to get rid of my life and everything. So I did that. But it was also me dedicating my life to my son. So it wasn't just me doing that, but it was beneficial both ways. So obviously that is not how you get married. Don't do that. But it was my reality. Because I got married to her, I was now qualified as her family, which means I could have gotten a green card as well. And that's how I got my green card. And that's how it is we ended up in America. How did we end up in Omaha? When we were coming up and we were trying to choose where we wanted to go, we got Texas. We wanted to go either Texas, Florida, or New York. And right when it is, and the reason for that is because it's one flight to these places, direct flight. And then when we were just about to come, like in November, it had a bad spike in the COVID cases. And then we were like, no, we would just wait and figure out something else. And then she got a job offer from Omaha. We were like, Omaha what? Omaha where? Okay, so we went on YouTube. All of the 5 videos on YouTube of Omaha, from white dudes, bald head, and old guys, and all these different things talking about Omaha. And the only thing that resonated that was important to us was that it's a good place to raise a family. And then we were like, we'll probably be able to deal with the weather and the roads. The roads are not bad compared to New York. So, we were like, okay, let's give it a shot and see. And the rest is history. That's how we got to Omaha. So.
I got to ask a quick question about your culture. So your last name is French.
Yeah.
Bertrand. You speak, or you talk about Venezuela and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
You got a English school.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, African drums.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a lot of culture in one little small island.
Yeah.
Like a lot of different influences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm probably leaving something out, but just based on what you've said and knowing your last name, that's a lot of culture. Is it like America, kind of a melting pot, or what's the kind of driving force for culture there?
Well, the reason why there's so much culture is because of how many colonizers we had. Trinidad has had, I'm sure each one of those European countries has had a piece of Trinidad at some point in time. Portugal, Spain, France, England, of course, and Dutch, Netherlands. So at some point in time, all of them were a colonizer or shared some sort of territory with Trinidad. So we have a lot of influence from each colonizer. We took the British system of education and government. So we don't have senators and congressmen and congresswomen. We have members of parliament and we have ministers. And then we have like representatives for like community representatives, which I can't remember what they call those people right now. But so, and then we don't have Secretary of State, or we don't have departments of education. Ours is called the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Security. So the Department of Defense, DOD, but ours is the Ministry of Security, and the person who heads that is the Minister of Security, National Security. So English government system, English education system, also the English language, the British English language, not the American English language. So we spell labor with a U, Labour. We spell neighbor with a U. We spell
color
with a U.
Yeah.
You know,
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
Yeah, aluminium with a U. Nice. And then
I just know it said different.
That's funny.
And there are other things too, like with here, CHECK is written Czech, but living in England, CHEQUE is written Czech. So we spell that differently. CHECK is correct, check mark. So those are different things. One of the celebrations that we have, actually, that's happening right now in Trinidad is called Carnival. Not like Brazilian Carnival. Ours is definitely, there are similarities because both of them are taken from French celebration. And I am in no way no expert in understanding what Carnival is. I need to empower myself more to be able to give a better definition of Carnival. But my understanding is Carnival is derived from the French. We got that from the French influence. So it's a street parade, music, and there's a whole industry around Carnival.
Yeah, it's very similar to in Louisiana we call Mardi Gras.
Right.
Which comes from the French as well.
And Mardi Gras is an actual part of Carnival in us. There's like a celebration that we call Mardi Gras, but it's a parade of, they call it Carnival Kings and Queens. So we build huge costumes, and these men and women cross a big stage for judging, for points, for money, for whatever it is, for title, bragging rights, everything. And yeah, so that is the French influence. Our food and a lot of our music has Indian and African influence, as well as Spanish influence, as well
Indian,
as
like
French.
the country India with spices and stuff.
Yeah. At one point in time, we had something. So during the time of slavery, there were African slaves. And then the slavery was abolished. I don't know the year because I was never into history that much. But at the same time, there were Indian laborers that were called Indian indentured laborers. So the difference between slavery and indentured laborers is indentured laborers actually had land and they were getting stipend. Slavery was you have quarters where you sleep, which is crazy, but you come and you get no compensation. So that's like the definite. I mean, it's much worse than that, but that's like the easiest comparison between slavery and indentured laborers. Indentured laborers actually got some sort of a payment, and they were promised some portion of land. So we have in Trinidad, we have Indians not from India, but ancestors would have come from India, and then ancestors in Trinidad would have come from Africa. And so that's how our music has both Indian and African influence as well. So, and then Spanish is our official second language.
It's a lot of culture for whatever you said, 1.7, 1.8 million people.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of. I mean, America has a lot of cultures, but you're talking whatever it is, 3 billion or whatever it is.
Right.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, for something that's double the size of Omaha, that's a lot of culture.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to say that I have understanding of different backgrounds and different cultures because I grew up in that island.
What is it like coming to Omaha that has really no culture? And the culture they have is very segregated. Like, what's the redlining, or am I using the right term? Like, Omaha was very redlined. Like, you have South Omaha, which is mostly Hispanic, North Omaha, which is more black. You have
West Omaha, which is primarily white.
West Omaha, you have Little Bohemian,
Mm-hmm.
you have Little Italy, like all these very segregated areas.
Mm-hmm.
So what, I mean, it's very different culturally, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that was a shock to me. But we have something similar like that, except because the island is so small, it's not as defined as here. So in certain parts of Trinidad, there is the white Trinidadians that have a Trinidadian accent, but you could hear that there's some sort of an either British or American influence in that family. And they have their area that they live in, their rich area that they live in. And ironically, it's in the west of the country, the northwest of the country.
That's funny.
But then you have the rest of the island, and it's basically mixed. So you have Indians living here, you have Africans living here, all over. It's not like one area is black, one area is Spanish. Like, that's insane when I came up here, like how much it's separated.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's getting better, but it's
definitely.
It's very historically that way.
Yeah. So that wasn't necessarily like a culture shock for me. And I have never experienced racism coming up here. Actually, there was one time when I just came up, I was working DoorDash, and I was driving and picking up something in one of those, I think it was D&Q or DQ, and there were these white boys. They looked very drunk or high or whatever, and they saw me in the line, and they started blurting out and mimicking Spanish. Yeah, because apparently I looked Spanish to them. So they were like, oh, and I'm like, I couldn't help but laugh. But that was my only experience of racism, which doesn't really count.
Yeah.
You know? I do have Spanish blood in me on my mother's side. Her father is from Venezuela. So I do have that Spanish influence in me. But they would call me, in Trinidad, they would call me a coco payol, because my father has French influence in him. So Creole or coco payol is what they would call my type of person. Or in Trinidad, they would say I'm a red man because I'm not dark. I'm on the lighter side. I'm on the lighter side of the scale, the black scale. I'm the brown.
It's funny because hearing you speak and talk about your culture, it reminds me a lot of Louisiana. You know, like people be called high yellow or red, or like it was, you know, very, very more cultural. There's a lot of similarities with the French and the African, and you have more stuff than we do, but still a lot of similar culture stuff.
America was I don't know much about America, which I have to learn. If I have to get my passport and my citizenship, I have to learn about American history. But my very limited knowledge of American history is that it was an English colony. But I don't know if it was ever a Spanish or ever a French colony at any point in time. I don't know. Maybe portions
America, were,
you know, but I know you all. I know, and I'm saying you all because that's ingrained in me. I know America got its independence from England. That's about most of the history.
That's more than most Gen Z kids, know.
Hey,
Nowadays.
I'm a millennial. I'm right in, I barely made it into the millennial, but so 100% I'm a millennial, and I accept that millennial with pride.
Yeah, I see these people that go around interviewing kids and asking them, basic U.S. history stuff, and the amount of ignorance is just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I think every kid born in this country should have to take the same exam that you need to get a green card.
Maybe you should have to take it before you can vote every.
I think that's
year.
A great idea.
Every 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe someone.
I want to hear about your journey. Through, you said the music was the only good thing you had going for so many years, and then you started talking about how the Christian influence in the music. Do you think that was always a subliminal impact of good in your life? Was that because of that Christian influence, or where did that kind of, I guess that faith kind of impact your life, or where did you have the clarity?
That's a real good question. I was born Roman Catholic, so that's all I knew growing up.
Is the island mostly? I kind of figured that by the way you're talking. That's mostly Catholic.
There is a large group of Catholics there, but because there's a lot of Indians, there is Muslims, and there are Black Muslims as well. It's not just Indian Muslims. So you have Indian Muslims, Black Muslims, but you also have Black and Indian Hindus. So Hindu is also a big religion in Trinidad. And then you have like traditional African, like Orisha. Then you have spiritual Baptists, and you have Orisha Baptists, and all of these are like different religions with different ethnicities, and a combination of, so like the Orisha Baptist people are primarily Black people. You might get some Indians every now and then, but it's mainly like Black people. Hindus, primarily Indian people, but you might get a Black person or two in the Hindu religion. And then Roman Catholic is for everybody. Christianity is for everybody. And then you have Pentecostals, you have, the other Christian faiths, and Muslims. So I grew up Roman Catholic. That's all I knew. I was taught, because my parents didn't know better, that whoever is not Roman Catholic is not like good saved people then. People who doing their religion, their practices, they not necessarily condemned to hell. Like those terms were never used on me or with me to describe them, but they were just saying that,
they're confused.
Yeah, they don't know what they want in life. Much like me, who was a Roman Catholic, I still didn't know what I wanted. So it was kind of ironic to hear that from them. But that musical influence with my family definitely was a part of what kept me grounded and not had me like in a depressive state for my entire life in Trinidad. As I say, it's so saturated in Trinidad. It's very difficult to be able to make an impact unless you know the right people, and then you also have the right product to be able to sell to those people to build some sort of an income. So there are a lot of transportation companies, because that's the easiest hustle. You buy a 1.5-ton truck or 3-ton truck with a bed and an open bed, a tray, and you just drive. You advertise that you do transportation services. And that's how my bigger brother started his transportation business, and now he has like a big truck that transports tractors and all these different things. He still has his small trucks and stuff, but it's still very much a hustle. Like you have to make sure, and like if you're driving on the road and you see someone shut down at the side, you pull aside and you say, give me 15-20 minutes, I'm going to go and get my truck and come and pick. That's the hustle. That's the hustle mentality. And it's hard to get out of that because of the state in which, opportunities are available in Trinidad. It's just very limited. And that's why I advocate for people to at least leave where they are, in that space. Don't be limited to the boundaries of Trinidad. Explore options outside, build a life. And if you want to feed into retirement back home, then design your life to be able to do that. So go make a living outside, And a lot of people have done that in Trinidad. They live 15, 20 years making a living, and then they move back to Trinidad to retire. I am not going to do that. Not because I don't like Trinidad, but it's just because I love Trinidad, but I don't see myself retiring there. I might see myself retiring somewhere. Tomorrow wants to retire, which might be Bali or some kind of weird place. Or we just travel a lot. But we just have one place that is home base, which either might be Omaha or wherever that we decide is home base. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, we were getting to the music. What role did the music and the Christian influence on the music have through that period of your life?
So it didn't really have much of an influence because I was still very much a bad person. I was still doing my nonsense. I was still a womanizer. So that's why I say I didn't understand the Roman Catholic faith. I didn't understand what Christianity was until this age when I got baptized last year. And now I understand what Christianity is after going through that journey of being lost and ironically being lost and now found. You know, like it was a journey. It wasn't something that had me anchored. Like the Christianity part of the music was just, I guess that was just part of the tradition of singing parang around the birth of Christ and the Annunciation. But that's it. Like for me, it didn't go deeper than that. It was just the
Very
music.
surface.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that that's kind of speaking to me is it's like one strand that was just enough to hang on so you didn't float away.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool is that you didn't say I was listening to heavy metal, satanic music, and that's what got me through this. It was the only thing in your life that had a slight influence, even subliminally.
Subliminally.
Yeah, that it had a Christian influence.
Because it would have kept my faith in God. So me being in that, singing songs in the early is not understanding what I'm singing because it's in Spanish. You sing in Spanish, by the way.
Right.
So
it's
not understanding.
Even more subliminally.
Not understanding.
You don't even know that you're worshiping at that point.
Exactly. You know,
You're just singing Christos or however they say it.
Yeah, Jesus Christo. And you know, just still having that there is what allowed me to be like, yeah, I believe in God. I just don't understand how deep this goes. And then when I came up here, that's when everything made more sense. Like I had more of an eye-opening experience, and you know, got baptized and yeah, really dive deep into the Christian faith and understanding it more. So,
oh, that's very cool to hear.
Yeah. So you've been here 4 years, 4.5 years, something like that.
December of this year, December 2025 will be 5 years.
Okay. So just crossed over 4 years though.
Yeah.
So what's kind of been your experience? Obviously, you started a business. Your
I was
video
like,
spelt wrong.
I was like, what do I wear for this podcast? Let me just pull this jersey.
Yeah.
My logo has changed a little bit, but
yeah, kind of talk through your journey of that. I assume tomorrow's doing nursing and
yeah. So we came up here.
More kids and all that.
Yeah. Well, one more since coming up.
So far.
Hey, maybe we'll see. But while tomorrow was working, I don't have any degree or anything like that. I'm more or less like a jack of all trades at this point. And then I got more trades to add to that jack belt. So now we are in 2021, and when I was home, I was like, how do I be successful in America? And I started looking at Robert Kiyosaki videos. I started looking at bigger pocket stuff, and I started learning about real estate. And that's how it is I met you guys, because I integrated into the real estate space when I came up. But at that point, I didn't know you guys at that point. And I recently would have met you compared to Ted and Owen.
Yeah, I think I probably met you in 2023.
When you came onto the podcast.
Yeah.
I'd have to. And then I met you when you came onto the podcast. And then after is when it is I realized that you and Nicole were in DVG and all these different things. And that's when we started getting closer. But I didn't know you. At least I understand it to be that way. Where you came into the podcast, and then after the podcast is when it is.
I think we had met a few times before that, but yeah, that's when we got a lot closer.
Yeah, and I should say, I think that was the first time we might have seen each other in passing, but I think it was the first time we talked.
We actually had
a conversation. Yeah.
So the podcast brought us together.
I mean, I can ask my wife, and she'll know exactly which dates that we had met. And yeah, we talked to Denlis on this date, and
That's Nicole for sure. Yep. And Tamara has that superpower too. I don't know if Mrs. Miller has that superpower, but she probably does.
I don't know. She doesn't. No,
She doesn't show up. So in 2021, but I mentioned that I was working DoorDash, and still involving myself in the YouTube part of real estate and kind of learning as much as I can. And I went on Bigger Pockets and I typed in real estate in Omaha. I think that was the search thing, right? And then it came up that there's a meetup. I think Ted posted it, and then or I posted in Bigger Pockets, is there any meetup in Omaha? Ted commented, and then I don't believe I'm forgetting I'm blanking his name out right now, but the Indian guy, my name, the name is blanking out, and he's actually my really good buddy. He's probably going to be upset that I forget his name. But just give me 1 second. I feel like my phone is vibrating. I'm going crazy.
it's probably him texting you. Why don't you remember?
3 p.m. Yeah, I told him 3 p.m. He said okay. So in they both invited me to Ted's meetup. Went to Ted's meetup, saw Ted doing everything from notes to announcements to setting up the live stream and everything. And then I was like, at the end of it, I went up to him and I'm like, I don't know you, you don't know me, but I have a camera and I can help you. So let's figure out how it is I can help you. Let me, shoot some kind of a promo video for you. And that was how it started. It was me recording it and then creating a promotional video for the next meetup. And it just so happened that one of the promotional videos that I created was when Owen and this guy did a meetup together. God, names, too much names. But he was a partner with the guy who runs KW Elite.
Paul?
No, not Paul. Paul was actually someone who I actually got a opportunity to shoot something for, but it was not him. Who's the other guy? Jeff. So Jeff and somebody.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know Jeff and somebody, whatever his name is. I don't know why I'm blank.
Not you start drawing a blank. I know who you're talking about,
but you know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, so Clint Bartlett. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Is it Clint Bartlett?
Yeah.
So Clint Bartlett and Owen did a podcast episode, kind of a meetup thing. This was when it was still at Anthony's, right? So we did that, and he I would have recorded that, but I would have recorded stuff before and made a promo video for that specific meetup. That was one of the promo videos that I made. I never made a promo video after that for Ted. It transitioned from that to me recording the meetups for him to be able to post it on Facebook or whatever the case is. Then it changed from that to me figuring out how to live stream with my camera to Facebook. And then from there, that's where the business started coming in. So in the beginning, after doing it, I did that. I worked with Ted for his video stuff for 10 months without any pay. I didn't ask him for any money. But because I was so dedicated to showing up every time, he recommended me. That's how I got into DVG. He recommended me to Mike and Jerry for a marketing position in their companies. So that's how I got in there. But that was my seed money that I needed to be able to start my company. So I worked with Mike and Jerry for like 6 or 7 months. I can't remember how long it was. And then that was when Mike and I more or less kind of realized that it's better for me to not be in like, if I could go on my own and do stuff and maybe subcontract for them, that would be a better fit for their model. And that's how it is. I ended up leaving DVG and Dream Vesting Group, and then going and more or less starting my own company. So in 2022 was when DB Video was official. That was the first February. Can't remember 27th or 28th or whatever. It was registered company, and at that point, Ted decided he needed to start paying me. Like he was like, "You're doing too much. I want to start giving you something. How much do you charge?" Like, bro, I don't know. I've been doing it for free. Like, I don't know. And
I got no clients. I don't know.
You know, I just started pricing.
So
and
tripled the price.
I wish. And, you know, that's more or less how DB Video was born. And I tell people, my videography company was born out of necessity, not passion. It was a necessary thing. I had a camera. I saw an opportunity, and that's how I got in. And then later that year, I would have gotten into DVG. And then a little later that year, we would have started the podcast. And then I would have left DVG and then started my videography company.
Two quick things. One thing that really stood out when you said that, you said it twice, actually, two different ways, but you led with value. So many people, I get emails all the time. Hey, I can help you with your Instagram. I can do this for you. Cause like I have my email that it's public, like on my social media, but no one wants to lead with value. They say what they can do, but now they didn't lead with anything like, hey, look, I fixed this for you. This will help you, or anything like that. Like lead with value, bring something to somebody, and then get paid on the backside.
100%. I believe in that model. I mean, I've lived that model, so I believe in that model 100%. Free to fee is what the videography people call it, where you do something for free, and then if they are pleased, then we can say, okay, let's talk about how it is we could actually go into partnership. If you want me to continue doing this great work for you that you are so pleased with, then we could start talking about compensation. But if you don't know the person, they don't have a track record, anything like that, they cold email you, they send you some examples, but you still don't know if the person is a good person, a bad person, you're going to take chances. You know, so when people lead with value, it shows their character before anything else. And a lot of people invest into person's characters over their talents. Because you could always build talent, but it's so difficult to build character.
Oh, that's a good one.
So that was something that I have realized that at least I learned that from Ted, because Ted is also very much that way, where he is, you know, he's 100% on reputation and character and building a good reputation and building good character relationships with people, and then figure out how the monetary thing comes after. That was the way I set up the podcast with Ted and Owen. I was like, we'll do all these different things. We'll figure out money after. Let's get the podcast going. Let's get the episodes. Let's tweak. Let's soundproof, move studios, build new studios. It was all about just getting them up and running. And that was my part of it. I would come in with a little bit of color commentary, and they so-called say that they miss me in the podcast. You know, but we'd see.
So that was the second thing I wanted. Like you mentioned the podcast a few times, but this is the first time you've ever been on this side of the podcast, being an interviewed person. You set up, and I mean, I don't know, they got 150, 200 episodes. I don't know how many episodes they're in now, but
they're almost 200. Yeah.
And you've done quite a few. I don't know how many you produced.
I did the first 116.
Wow.
I did the first 116, and then I started working on transitioning out of being in the studio, but also it saved them costs to already integrate whoever their VAs were into doing the back end editing and stuff. So the back end editing of the podcast right now is handled by Ted's VA crew, and the studio end is operated by me. So that's how we split the production now. I'm still, quote unquote, the producer, but the back end production is done by his people, and I do the studio.
So other than the technical knowledge that you've gained, what's the biggest thing you've learned just being the bird's eye view on a podcast operating?
It's more than what I see with podcasters is that they think that there's a particular way that podcasts need to be done for it to be successful.
We're definitely disrupting that.
They think that they have to do it in this way. This is the framework for a podcast to be successful. There is some truth behind that, but it's less of the content and more of the people. So you could talk about absolute nonsense.
Oh, we do.
No, but I'm saying, like, you could talk about more nonsense, things that are irrelevant to life, anything. Let's talk about girls and parties and drugs and whatever. Nothing of value. But if people like your personalities, they would buy into your podcast. So it's a lot about the people, and more about the people than the actual content. Now, that scale is always shifts left and right. It's never like, that's why I say it's not a one size fit all solution. Because there are people who have unique podcasts that offer unique products that people, a specific niche, that they buy into that. But if you're looking at the general public, real estate is a niche, life and business is a niche, but like the general public, like my wife, she watches like vlogs. Just people walking around talking about their life. And there's a whole bunch of people that buy into that kind of content. So much so these vloggers are making millions.
It's crazy.
Just filming their life.
Day in life.
Yeah. And it was just a phone. And then it went to microphone and phone. And now it's like full vlogging cameras and everything. Like it's insane. The amount of effort that they put into it. But just like how I have my videography business, that is their videography business of their content creation. So they put a lot of effort into it. I just was never that type of person to do vlogging. I can't understand it. But yeah, so to answer your question, what I have learned with podcasting is that the people who are doing the podcast, your character is what definitely, I am a big advocate on character, if you guys haven't realized as yet. The character of the people who are doing the podcast it weighs heavily on those people. And then the content is another portion of it. The other thing is a lot of people try to bootstrap podcasts and expect results of people like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, right.
You can't do that unless you work on that part that Joe Rogan has, which is he had a following before he started his podcast. He had people who, I don't know if it was stand-up comedy or if it was UFC or whatever he was doing at that point in time. But he had a substantial following.
Background, yeah.
So if he had like 5,000 people who followed him on what the equivalent, Facebook at that point in time, let's say it's Facebook. He had 5,000 followers on Facebook. If he starts a podcast with 5,000 supporters, and he converts 10% of that, 500 people will be the first time he would. I'm just saying. So just with that understanding, unless you build a following and a community before you start a product like this, expect it to be a grind from the start. So if you have 500 people and you have 500 people on Instagram, and that's where you post your reels and stuff, you're not going to get much conversion. But if you work on growing your community because of whatever product that you guys are putting out, and you work on building a community that your content is speaking to, and that people actually make it into something that is interactive, that kind of stuff, make it a lot more call and response, like interactive with people commenting, and it's very difficult to get people to comment on your stuff, even with a call to action at the end. Like you'll be like, comment below, and no one comments below. And I know that hits, for some people, it hits their pride. They're like, nobody is commenting on my stuff, nobody's looking at my stuff, and then they give up.
What I found, because I've misspoke on a couple of things, that gets the most comments. Saying something wrong, and I've read people intentionally say stuff wrong, or like
pissing people off works wonders.
Like I read about people standing there recording like frontal with their pants unzipped on purpose just to get comments. just to make it go more viral. Be like, hey, dude, your fly was unzipped the whole time.
There's a whole industry of rage bait, type of content. It drives me nuts. Like I just thumbs down, not interested, whatever, every time I see it. Because I'm like, this is such a cheap trick,
And they say that any publicity is publicity. So whether it's good or bad, you get publicity. That's the idea, is to get more eyes on your content, to go viral. But then it's like, okay, so your zipper is down and someone comments, that goes viral. But then they tap onto the other video and they realize that you offer absolutely nothing of value and you have not converted.
It's a one-trick pony.
That's it. So it's more of, you do that, you get viral, you get views, but then if you don't have something, your character, and then the value, because you could have real good content, but if you're an asshole, nobody's going to take you on.
Settles it. We're not doing the zipper video.
Just throw it out.
No, a lot of people will be like, oh, Andrew Tate, because he's an asshole and he has good content. That's what people say. I've never bought into any of his thing and actually invested time on looking at his stuff. But I don't know much about him, but he might be an exception to the rule. But his story is not everybody's story.
Right.
You always get the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, so I get that. Well, and we started this to give small business owners a voice. And, people drive by all these companies all the time. They see them and that a business closes down and all they see is another brand closing down. But they don't know the person behind the business. And so getting to hear this stuff that, we've been friends for years now, and I didn't know most of your story. So that's why we started this podcast. And we didn't care if one person watches every week or, 100,000 people watch every week. It's just fun to talk, about people's stories and hear about, especially the common themes that we've noticed is how much faith was a driver behind the good in their business and in their family. And I think the thing that we haven't got quite touched on yet, and we might need to spend a whole nother 3 hours talking about, but is finding that balance of wanting to be a business owner, still being a good father, learning to be a good husband, being a good Christian. How do you factor in a balance for all those?
And that's actually something that I am struggling with and working on. I went to a parenting conference on Saturday in my church, and that was a question I had to them. So I'm now starting to build out the framework on how to do that balancing act. And our friend Brandon Turner, he said it best, which resonates with me, is that there is no such thing as work-life, family-life balance. It's work-life, family-life balancing. It's a constant thing, always doing it over and over. So getting that from him, and then hearing in the parenting conference, when I asked the question about being so driven, but also wanting to dedicate time to family, being driven into building a successful business, which time and time again in the podcast with Ted and Owen, I've heard of people regretting spending so much time in their work and not time with their family. And in other podcasts, not only just the Real Radio podcast, but in other podcasts. And that was a big fear of mine. I don't want to dive so deep into business that I neglect my family. So I have overcompensated by spending too much time with my family and not enough time on my business. And then the business part is now suffering. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I switch back over? The guy who answered my question in the conference, he says, when it comes to family time, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And understanding that even if it's 15 minutes that you spend with or half an hour that you spend with your son or daughter or wife, that 15 minutes must be so valuable that it replaces the equivalent of 5 hours together. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And in understanding now that I have that and I'm internalizing that, I'm now starting to figure out ways of how to be able to explain that to my wife so that she understands, but also to show her that me spending time in the business is me investing into you retiring. So look at it like that, understand it. And the other question I did not get answer that I wanted to get answer was, how does the spouse and the spouse's role fit into someone like me. So I wanted her to hear that answer because she would be my support while I'm going through this, but I'm also supporting her.
Mm-hmm.
But because me being the business focused person, the level of responsibility with respect to taking care of home and that kind of stuff sadly falls 60% on her. I wouldn't even say more than 60%, which means sometimes she has to do more in the home than me. If she's working weekends and Monday to Friday she's home, then Monday to Friday I need to be grinding. And if it is I am grinding, going out, doing meetings and all these different things, trying to get clients, but you're saying that I could do that from home, that's defeating. One, it's against my nature because I very much like interperson, showing up in person and having conversations that way because I feed off people's energies a lot better. So I could close a deal sitting in front of somebody much better than over the phone.
Right.
There are people who could talk over the phone and close a deal. They are talented. I can't do that because I'm not that good with BSing. Like I've passed that. I've put that part of my life away. So I lead with integrity. I lead with honesty. I make sure and I tell people and transparency. Those are like my key things. So if it costs $1,500 for me to do it, I'm going to tell you why it's $1,500. I'll break it down so you understand. This camera and this lens together costs $3,000. I'm renting it to you for $175. What's the ROI? And like I literally go down to that so that they understand that
it's not just arbitrary. No.
Yeah, it's not that. It's something that is meticulously calculated. So when you hear videographers calling prices, or even us, and I think there was a reel I ended up coming across where, there was this ship or some kind of thing like that, and there was a problem with the ship, so the ship had to be docked, and then they couldn't figure it out, so they called in a specialist, and the specialist came. He looked at where the issue was. He went back to his bag, pulled a hammer, pong something in, and it was fixed. But then he charged them 10 grand, and they were like, all he did was pong the hammer, and they were like, yeah, the 10 grand, like $5 was for the hammer, but $9,995 was the experience.
Knowing where to hit.
And how hard to hit it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think I came across, I'm probably butchering the story, but the idea of it is that you not only pay me for my skills, but you also pay me for my knowledge. Because if something goes wrong, you are relying on me to fix it. And if I can't fix it, then you're not getting value.
Right.
So
yeah, excellent.
Well, when it comes to the work-life balancing thing, I think the best thing that I've learned is we try to give 100% of our attention to all these different people. And now that you have 2 kids now and your wife, you're trying to give 100% attention to 3 of them all the time. What winds up happening is each of them get 30% of your attention 100% of the time. But where you have some transformation is flipping that, and each of them get 100% of your attention 30% of the time. And the more times you split that, you realize that there's less time in a day. But like you said, it's the quality over quantity, and it's something we struggle with all the time. But being able to treat my wife just like the kids. My wife gets 100% of my attention. Whatever, with the 100 divided by 9 is a smaller percentage of the time, but that time winds up being at night. From 11 to 12, we're watching a show together, and if I have to go back to work after that, then I'm having a late night. But it's giving her that same dedication that each of the kids get.
100%. I agree with that. One of the other things that I'm learning to do now is also to work on myself. Because that's another thing. I have to give myself time because I can't give anything that I don't have. So if it is I don't have energy, I can't give them energy. In order for me to get energy, I have to sleep properly. So I learned that Ruben Gomez, he actually taught me something where fixing my schedule around my sleep, prioritizing sleep, getting that 8 hours in or as close to the 8 hours as possible. So what time do I want to wake up to start my day, and working backwards. And and reverse engineering it. so that I could time block according to my sleep schedule, not according to my availability during the day. So that was something that I'm still struggling with to try to get to bed by like 9, 10 for the absolute latest. But I've done a lot better, because before I used to go and sleep 1, 2 in the morning. Now I'm like 10, 11 will probably be the latest, but like 10, I've done a couple of 9 o'clock nights.
Started off at 9, 10, 11, and it didn't matter of sentences.
Yeah, like between 10 and 11, between 9 and 11. But because I'm still a work in progress, I'm working as some nights I get 9, some nights I get 10, some nights I get 11.
I'm envious of people that can be in bed by 8:30.
Yeah, that's me. Well, I don't know about 8:30, but yeah, my wife makes fun of me for it. She's a night person.
But you probably wake up really early.
Wake up at 5 every day.
See? So I have yet to do that. Like I get up at 6:30 only because my alarm wakes me up to be able to go and start prepping for my son. But if I get up at 5, that's an entire hour and a half that I could do something. And it's not work. I don't believe in waking up and just doing work immediately.
No, I work on myself until 7:30, 8 o'clock. So those first 2-3 hours are my selfish time.
Yeah, time. And that's probably the only thing that would work for me, because my wife is not a morning person. So if I could figure out how to get up at 5 or even 4:30, which would be pushing it, then I could figure out, okay, what time do I need to go and sleep to be able to wake up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock? And continue fixing my day around that. So
yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. I know you got another appointment you got to get off to, so I want to be respectful of your time and their time. So
I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah,
we do have a lot more to talk about.
This was definitely a good conversation. I really I like culture. I like a lot of traveling, and that's one reason I do what I do. But to be able to travel more, so I really appreciate that, and tell us a lot about your story. So
yeah, I appreciate you guys inviting me on, and allowing me to ramble on for so long, because and I had to stop myself a few times because I was going.
We'll break out the whole cricket episode and I just release that. We'll give you any revenue that comes from it.
100%, I appreciate that. But thank you guys. Definitely, and I know we're gonna talk offline about me being a part of figuring out how to help you guys enhance your production quality. But until then,
you've already given us 15 minutes of content before this, kind of pointing out some things. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. Until next time.
Yeah, buddy. Shake hands for the camera. There you go.
Appreciate it, man. We